The story of Glámr is one of the most chilling tales in Norse mythology, filled with supernatural terror, eerie landscapes, and the sinister consequences of defying the divine. Glámr, a fearsome shepherd, is best remembered for his transformation into a draugr, an undead being that haunted the living and brought dread to an entire region. Glámr was a man of immense size and strength, known for his gruff demeanor and disdain for traditional beliefs. He was employed as a shepherd in a remote valley where the winters were harsh, and the landscape was stark and forbidding. The farmers in the area lived in fear of supernatural forces, particularly during the Yuletide season, a time they believed was rife with otherworldly activity. They observed strict customs and avoided angering the gods and spirits. However, Glámr scoffed at these traditions, openly mocking the townsfolk's superstitions and refusing to honor the gods. On Christmas Eve, Glámr refused to fast and attend church, as was the custom, and instead set out to tend the sheep in the wilderness. His employers and the local community warned him against venturing out on such a sacred night, but Glámr dismissed their concerns with scorn. He set out into the biting cold, leaving behind an ominous sense of foreboding. When morning came, Glámr did not return. The farmers ventured out to search for him, only to find his lifeless body in the snow, surrounded by signs of a fierce struggle. His corpse bore no clear wounds, but it was twisted in an expression of pure terror. Near him, the snow was disturbed as if a massive creature had battled him. The locals whispered that he had encountered some malevolent force, perhaps a spirit of the wilderness or a servant of the gods, punishing him for his blasphemy. The farmers brought his body back to the settlement, but no one dared to bury him in consecrated ground. His defiance of the gods and the ominous circumstances of his death filled the community with dread. Instead, they buried him hastily in a remote area. However, this was not the end of Glámr's story. Soon after his burial, strange occurrences began to plague the valley. People reported seeing Glámr's massive figure wandering the hills, and livestock started disappearing or turning up mutilated. A heavy sense of fear settled over the community as it became clear that Glámr had not found peace in death. Instead, he had become a draugr, a revenant, driven by malevolence and resentment. As a draugr, Glámr was terrifying to behold. His once human form was now grotesquely exaggerated, his eyes glowing with an unnatural light, and his presence radiating an aura of death and despair. He roamed the valley, terrorizing anyone who ventured near his haunts. No one could stand against him, his undead strength was far greater than it had been in life, and his malevolent spirit seemed impervious to earthly weapons. The situation grew so dire that the farmers called upon a hero named Grettir the Strong to deal with Glámr. Grettir, a legendary warrior known for his courage and formidable strength, agreed to face the draugr, though even he was wary of the challenge. Grettir spent the night in a farmhouse near Glámr's haunt, waiting for the undead creature to appear. As night fell, Glámr's shadow loomed over the valley, and he approached the farmhouse with thunderous steps. Grettir confronted him, and the two engaged in a brutal fight. Despite Glámr's immense size and supernatural strength, Grettir held his ground. The battle raged on until Grettir managed to throw Glámr to the ground. However, as Grettir pressed his weight against the draugr, Glámr uttered a terrible curse. With his dying breath, Glámr cursed Grettir to a life of misfortune and despair. He foretold that Grettir would never know peace, that his strength would ultimately bring him more sorrow than glory, and that he would die a lonely and ignoble death. The weight of this curse would haunt Grettir for the rest of his life, shaping his tragic destiny. After the fight, Glámr's body was burned, and his ashes scattered to prevent his return. The valley was freed from his terror, but the memory of his haunting lingered as a warning against defying the gods and mocking the unseen forces of the world. Glámr's tale remains one of the darkest and most haunting stories in Norse mythology, a reminder of the thin veil between the living and the dead, and the dangers of arrogance in the face of the divine.